Okay, so a lot to digest from the weekend's races down at Fairgrounds and over at Turfway Park, which Jon has a bee in his bonnet about. Stay tuned for that. But first, we'll talk about Fairgrounds and the Louisiana Derby. I was there. It was my first time ever at Fairgrounds. And aside from the fact that the horse I was there for ran last in the Louisiana Derby, it was a beautiful day, perfect weather. It's a nice track. We sat like in one of the clubhouse tables overlooking the entire track. It was really beautiful. And it was, I love seeing New Orleans show up for something like that. Like I get in line waiting to get in and it's like all these people in these like fabulous, colorful outfits waiting in line to go see the races on Louisiana Derby Day. I just love that that's still an event. It was a huge crowd. The lines were crazy and it was a great turnout. Shout out to Vince Tuminello, who's one of the Louisiana racing commissioners who I met down there. Good dude, showed me around, make sure we had access to the paddock. But as far as the race goes, to me, I don't want anybody out of this race going into the Derby. That's no disrespect to Tiztastic, who's a really nice horse and has run well in a couple of big spots now. I thought the race kind of unfolded perfectly for him like it looked on paper. There was a quick pace up front. John Hancock probably did the most running, hanging on to run fourth, but he wasn't any great shakes in the stretch of that race. To me, this was a race that was kind of won by default. It was a 95 buyer for the winner. So that's not to say that he couldn't factor in the Derby if he got like a total pace meltdown, but it just looked on paper going into the race as not one of the strongest renewals of the Louisiana Derby. And I think it played out that way on paper. I think the stronger preps are going to be this coming week in the Arkansas Derby and then the following week in the Bluegrass and the Wood and the Santa Anita Derby. Jon, any thoughts from the Louisiana Derby?
Well, I think Tiztastic winning proves a couple of things, Joe. Number one is that Tiz the Law continues to be one of the up-and-coming new sires. That's first and foremost, and that shouldn't be a shock to anybody. Son of Constitution, if anything, they're going to continue to run better as the races go longer, maybe even turf. But, Tiztastic's win was set up to be perfectly for him. I thought that he ran a good race. I thought that he's a legitimate contender in the Derby. But to me, Joe, my takeaway is how much more do the races coming out of Oaklawn look when Tiztastic, lost by 2.5 lengths to Speed King and Sandman in the Southwest, and then lost by 7 lengths almost in the Rebel to Cole Battle and Madaket Road and Sandman again. Does that complement the horses coming out of Oaklawn? Because, Tiztastic kind of pivoted and went down to Louisiana, which I thought, again, from a management standpoint, that was a very good decision, obviously. You look at the race and you say, okay, Chunk of Gold is a nice up-and-coming horse and a good story, and a Brary Jones homebred, preservationist out of a Cairo Prince mare. I mean, you can't get more Airdrie bred than that. $2,500 Phasig graduate. That ran a good second and is, it basically hasn't done anything wrong. Won his first race out on the Tapeta in a restricted race, then ran second 3 times in a row. And basically, as the races have gone further, he's gotten stronger or less weak than the rest of the group. I was disappointed John Hancock wasn't able to keep his speed going, really faded down the stretch and stopped. And I think maybe it looks like that he's a miler more than anything else. But to me, the other disappointment was Built. I mean, he's a horse that I actually had some high expectations for. I picked him in the contest, and he had run a couple of solid races. I thought with the blinkers on that was going to help him, and unfortunately, he just never really got into gear for whatever reason. So overall, I understand what you're saying about the pool of horses that were in the race, that they were disappointing and probably aren't going to be showing up the first Saturday of May. But I have to give Tiztastic his due. I mean, he's really done nothing wrong in his career, and things set up, and he ran the way that they anticipated him to run.
Yeah, no, I was nothing. Like I said, take nothing away from the winner. I just, on paper, I'm this isn't like a post race like bitterness thing. I thought going into the race, it didn't look like the strongest renewal. But yeah, I think I hope it bodes well for Sandman, because he was kind of like Sandman, that he ran out of racetrack in those races at Oaklawn, and now he stretches out to 1 mile and 3/16.
Right.
And then look what he does, produces a career best effort. Great point about Tiz the Law as well. So yeah, he'll definitely be staying on in the Derby. I just think 95 buyer got the setup. It's just it's tough to me to see him being a win candidate. But I think there is a major Kentucky Oaks contender, Captain Obvious, here, coming out of the Louisiana Derby card.